I'm afraid I'm going to give you a chance to get it right on time.
That's fine.
Right, good evening ladies and gentlemen, lovely to see you all. Shall we make a start? So, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Jackie Campbell and I am not Head of Barbican and Estates, Mr Richardson.
No, you're not.
And Karen Tarbox here is not Head of Housing Needs Property and Barbican.
And as from tomorrow, I won't be the manager of
No, absolutely not. No, he's finished. So I'm the Assistant Director for Housing and Neighbourhoods, and welcome to Artisan Street Library and Community Centre. We do have Karen, my colleague here, who is Assistant Director for Barbican and Property Services. Amy Carter is a member of Karen's team. Paul, sadly, is a member of my team. And I'll ask our guests to introduce themselves.
My name's Joel Batsy, I was here last time, and I'm the manager of St Mungo's Broadway's Outreach Services.
Good evening everyone, my name is Tom Bush. I work in the Children and Families team. I'm the Early Help Coordinator, and some of you may know me, my former guys. I've worked in housing and homelessness for the corporation for about 5 years previously.
My name is Karen Marks. I'm the Recycling and City Housing Manager for the City of London.
Okay, thank you. We've also got Victor Callister here from the Department of the Built Environment. Victor's going to update us later on. And we've got Elise Eaton here from the City Police. So, thank you. So, we're going to start with Paul's Estate Manager's update.
Yeah. For what it's worth. Okay, Bob West, the lift engineer, apologised he couldn't be here this evening, but something came up, but it gave me a bit of a brief. I've got, can you see this? It's a graph of all of the reports that are called out from the list. So I can give one to each of you tomorrow or email it to you. Basically, what he's saying is... Yeah, I did it. The report breakdown makes both lists were in the tower mainly. The concern was existing cart and landing pushes were causing problems, but the cost of replacing those pushes was expensive, and he didn't want to spend the money because he couldn't justify it to the residents until he would confirm it would all work. So what he basically did, he took some call buttons from one lift and put it in the other lift. All went well until there was a call out because one of the wires was not connecting correctly, which was an engineer error. But apparently since that time, there's been literally 2 to 3 failures on the lift, so it has actually worked. So he's keeping his eye on it, and anything else comes up, we'll report back to us and we'll decide if anything else needs to be done. But it's working very well on the time.
Is that your sense that things are working a bit better on the lift front in the tower? Yeah, good. Because I know there was a lot of concern last time. We will ask Bob to come next time.
Yeah, most definitely.
So now he's identified, is he going to replace it? Is the problem?
Nothing at the moment in time, but no needs to replace at the moment in time. But he's still monitoring it. If it starts failing again, then I think he'll push towards replacing. But if they're not failing, then
But he
he
thinks
doesn't
he's
want to
found a
charge them.
solution.
Yes, most definitely.
I got the impression that there's a lift in the square where when you press the call button, nothing actually lights up to say that the lift is coming. I mean, it comes anyway,
Okay.
so I mean, that fact is kind of like academic. As long as it comes, that's the important thing. But I'm wondering if that's just simply the replacement of a tiny little
It
bulb
could be a bulb.
inside
We'll
the
look
light.
around end of this week, tomorrow, following day, we'll go around on the lifts and we'll identify any bulbs that don't work and we'll get a report.
I think it's the one where the public numbers.
There's a lot of them, especially in the
So we lift number 2 then.
I think that's lift number
No, we'll have a look
2.
round
It
on the
doesn't
light.
light up when you press the button.
When are you going to start implementing the weekly cleaning by the estate staff?
On the runners,
Yeah.
did you receive my email?
I said that you said that you'd be doing it after the deep clean, and
Yes.
it should be weekly, not waiting for
We
the
can
deep clean.
definitely start that this week or next week, but you won't see a massive improvement until the deep clean takes place because the dirt is so in ground at the moment. But we can definitely do that and get the monthly one done by the
I'm just wondering why it hasn't been done for the years, because I've been complaining that it should have been done weekly for years.
Yeah,
And the report from the lift engineer over 6 months ago specified that it's supposed to be done weekly. I'm just wondering why you didn't see it or implement it.
I'm afraid I don't have an answer. To my knowledge, they were cleaning, but maybe not to the level that we wanted them to. But they shall.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
I've got it.
next, yes.
Major
Sorry, I
preparations.
wasn't going to move on.
We've got, oh actually, We've got confirmation, you know the recycling area, the rough sleepers are,
Oh, no.
occasionally, or a lot. Karen Marks, my colleague down the end, will be talking more about that because she had a meeting with a fire safety officer and Linda Harding, our rough sleeper officer, I believe her title is. And we're not going to compromise fire safety if we are to move the recycling area into the car park. So it's our intention to do that, if people are in agreement, and Karen will talk more about the recycling aspect of what's been going on the estate as well.
Oh, did you say you will move it behind the doors? Did you say you will?
If people want that done,
Oh.
We
we can
spoke,
move it into the car park.
we spoke about it yesterday with the area Artisan Street
Yes.
redevelopment. And did you get the feedback about moving the gates so that the recycling will stay where they are, where it is? Did you get that feedback from the meeting last night?
Not at the moment in time, but I haven't read through all of my emails today because unfortunately I've been in meetings.
Because the whole point about moving the recycling area is you lose the cycling, use the cycle bays, and you've now created another space for street parking. You've let off-street parking. Whereas if you, I know it's £30,000 to move the gates, but if the money can be found, that cures a lot of problems without having to lose.
My understanding is that there are other reasons for not moving the gates, but we will check that
Yes,
out and
yeah.
make sure there's a report that comes back about that,
Okay,
because I know
yeah,
that's
I'll do
been raised before, and we had a
Get
look
back to
at
you.
it after the meeting last time.
We were glad to know the CCTV is now fully installed on the estates and new cameras in the lifts. I must say the functionality is fantastic and it works really, really well. It's a higher spec than we had before and we're really pleased with it. So it's actually got the ability that if it's on video, you can even zoom in on the video and increase it. It's fantastic resolution.
Can I ask a question about the CCTV?
Yes?
I'm not sure whether there's a legal requirement, but certainly I think it's a personal obligation that the city should have, would be to inform all residents where the CCTV cameras are and which ones are working.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
you know, for example, if there are CCTV cameras in lifts, there's no sign saying there's a CCTV camera in this lift. So I think from
yeah, I've got
a
someone
personal
on the
privacy
car park.
point of view, we ought to know which cameras are live
Of course.
and where they are. Because there are also quite a lot of cameras which are old and not in use at all.
I've got some signs on order, but I can get one saying CCTV camera.
But I think the list of where
Yeah,
they
no,
are
that's-
on the Middlesex Street Estate part of the City of London website,
Yeah.
and to keep that maintained would be a good thing
Yes,
to do.
of course, we can do that.
It will also be a good idea because it will deter ne'er-do-wells who are
Yeah.
planning on doing something bad.
Yeah.
If they think they're going to be picked up, they might not do it.
Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We should have signed it up, so
Yeah.
we'll make sure that is all up. Marion, you can
And Paul, if you could put a flyer out to say, people that drop litter in the lifts and in open areas, if they would please pick it up. I mean, you can now see lifts, a lot of stuff is left in the lifts now.
We're currently preparing for our next newsletter for the summer.
That's what I mean,
Would you like me to
please
put
put
it in the
that in,
newsletter?
yes.
It might be a deterrent. Hang on, can I just ask you, because Julian had his hand up.
No, I was just going to say, if you're going to put signs in the list, can you make sure that they are professionally made and not just stuck on the normal sellotape?
Yes, you've requested they go on a blue tack in the past, haven't you?
Well, I think it should be something that's permanent.
So it should be.
Can't just
You're
taken
absolutely
off,
right
But
there.
it should be, you know, a normal
Yeah.
sign be spec
Thank you.
corporate.
Is there anything can be done about the urination in the lift? You know, I went down today and there was a big puddle all over.
Well, hopefully CCTV will deter that.
If that happens, let us know. We can watch people on video doing that if it's your
Yeah, you've
current.
got to report it though.
Yeah, if
Yes, it does have to be reported, and then we.
Me, Billy, anyone on the estate, then we can look at the list.
Okay, can we move on?
Yep.
Somebody outside.
Henry Jones has inspected car park with me and suggested certain areas that may be painted to improve the look and the ambience of the area. I'm currently training the quote, and Henry believes he can source the funds, so there will be zero cost to the use of the car park by the estate. So that'll be another bonus for the car park if you use it. And that's both the basement level and parking level on the ground.
So isn't the car park a different budget anyway, so it doesn't come out of the estate?
Yeah, but it come out of car park now, so it's kind of, if we were to do improvements on the car park, it's not like that budget. And as there's residential parking in the car park, we're saying that nothing will come out of that budget for the car park anyway. So, hopefully some of you attended the meeting yesterday with Victor's team regarding the ramp and handbook afterwards, the improvement work. It's going on again tomorrow, is it 4 till 6?
Friday.
Okay, what time is it?
4 to 5.
4 till
Yeah, we
5?
are 4 to 5.
4 to 5 on Friday, so go along.
Peter's going to talk about that a bit
Yeah.
later on.
Now the fire exit door from the car park to the tower is now a single exit fire door, as you all know. Push bar on there, key access from the outside, and as far as we're aware, no one's been leaving it open again. So it's been fantastic over the last month, so thank you.
Only once I've seen those.
Only once? Okay. It's improved a lot then since the first week we've had it done. Thank you to Matt Ring, who you may know lives on the estate, but is a estate officer at Joint House, and our very own Billy Lambert, who's our housing management apprentice. Because they came along on Saturday and gave up their free time for about 8 hours to do the VE Day celebration. We did lots of time, but that's beside the point. And it was a fantastic day, so thank you to everyone who came down or got involved and helped out. And Kirsty Leach, who works with us also under the banner of Spice, helped organise the day, and her team funded the day for everyone, so it was really good. Thank you for coming along.
There's another event on, starting from us then, Street Community, community centre, which isn't on your Facebook page. Could you put it on there, please?
What event is that?
The walk from us then, Street Community Centre, around the City of London. If you look, it's on the...
24th of May, is that?
I don't remember, you'll see it on the library website.
Yeah, we'll put it on there, good time. Yeah, no problem. Definitely. You may know Terry O'Donnell has retired.
Oh.
We thought the day would never come.
We hope the day would never
Yeah,
come.
I'd certainly hope the day would never come. Obviously, wishing well for the future. I have advertised for a new position, and interviews are taking place on Friday. We've got 3 good candidates. We had 30 applications. We've got 3 very good candidates, and we're going to interview those, and hopefully, come Monday, we'll know who's successful, if they accept it, and then normally about 4-week lead-in date.
You don't residents on the board, do you?
No. No, thank you. It's going to be myself and Bob Jacks, but if there's a very close tie between 2 or 3 people, then we will ask views of certain residents.
Are they internal or external?
Internal.
Internal.
Because I know we've got the necessary skills internally to
Yes,
do it. And
just
and
wondered if...
2 people are current estate officers elsewhere, and 1 person works in facilities management on one of our main buildings, and he's got some very special set of skills which would tie in nicely with what residents need here.
Will the new person actually live on Middlesex
Yes.
Street in the way that
Yes.
Terry used to do?
It'll be residential, so can't guarantee they'll do what Terry done, because Terry did go
He did a
above
lot in
and
his own
beyond
time.
massively compared to
Yeah.
what he should do, but
Yeah.
we're hoping they'll tie in nicely with the estate and the style of work that we have here. So yeah.
When will they start?
Don't know yet. Interviewing tomorrow. No, it's like interviewing Friday. Should know by Monday or Tuesday if we're successful. Offer them the position. If they accept it, normally 4 weeks leaving date. They have to give their notice in. But if they're internal, we could put pressure on their managers to start sooner, but that's not often the case because they need to recruit for the person outgoing.
Yes.
So,
But you'll put it in the bulletin at the end
Oh,
of the week, won't you?
yeah,
So
as soon as we know who it is,
it
I'll be flying banners and everything, because at the moment myself and Billy's got extra work and working hard, and he is working very well, so I'm very pleased with it.
I should have asked this question slightly earlier on, but it's to do with moving the recycling bins inside the ground floor car park. It strikes me that that will create a nice flat open space outside where the recycling bins are now. Maybe Joe Batty can comment as to whether that actually will be just as attractive to the rough sleepers as the bins are at the moment. Because my observation in other parts of the city is that rough sleepers will just get a supply of cardboard boxes and they'll drag into a space and they'll just sleep there. So I'm not sure that that's actually going to solve or contribute to improving the rough sleeper problem.
It will solve it if we change the aspects of it to being maybe a caged off storage area, a non-access area in some way, shape or form.
Certainly that would make a difference.
That would resolve the issue. So I'm certainly not...
But that would be
We've got various
possibility.
ideas of what it can be used for. We'll talk to all the residents regarding it. It can be left as car parking, for casual car parking. It can be left as a storage area for everyone. It can just be caged off and used as estate storage. There's
Caged
quite a
off
few
cycle
different
bay.
ideas. Caged off cycle bay, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Different
so,
ideas.
if there was a possibility of if it
Move the door, gates will
That's
be
where
there.
that was.
If there's a possibility of it being caged off in the future, and that's, you know, within
that's
any
all right.
budget you have, then that's fine. I think it's just an open space, it just...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Joe will get to that aspect of it once it
Yeah.
comes around to it. But one thing I've also regarding the moving of the shutters, I was informed the shutters were moved to where they currently are now because there's a possibility traffic could back up into the road.
That's right.
Which is what we were talking about last night, putting the
Oh, I
gate to
see,
stop the
yes.
traffic backing up into there. Which is moving,
How would that work if there's 3 or 4
There was gridlock.
vehicles trying to come in?
because there'd be no casual vehicles coming in. If you had the gate at between the travel lodge and the estate rather than at the edge of the ramp, then they couldn't get into the Artisan Street at all. So you'd only have cars parking.
That would be blocking traffic
Okay,
in the
can
road.
I-
Yeah, I know what you mean, I know what you mean, but I'll have a talk with
I
you.
think we need to take this
Yeah.
and
It's
look
specific.
at it, because we've got a
Okay,
number of
yeah.
people who need to talk tonight, so.
Two
You
That's
done?
to be done, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And can I add, Paul thanked Bill and various people, but I'd also like to thank him because he was very much part of the whole VE Day organisation on Saturday, and I think they did a great job. Thank you. Okay, now we've got Elise come to update us on these matters.
Hiya everyone, I'm sure I know most of you here. Anyone not met me before? No? Okay. I'll just go through the crimes. First of all, there's not been many, it's been very good. In March there was 5 crimes, but the only one which was applicable to the estate was the fire in the basement of Petticoat Tower. There was arson committed down there. It probably was relevant to the rough sleepers, we believe, setting fire to something to keep warm.
You only got one report of fire because there was 2 days.
Oh, there was, yeah, you're right, there was something in the shed area, wasn't there?
We believe someone may put a cigarette butt in a waste paper bin.
Yeah.
So we've now removed the waste paper.
That is maybe accidental rather than deliberate.
Okay.
Even though
so-
we shouldn't be smoking in community areas
Yeah.
against the law.
I've noticed a big improvement with the security system, with the door being replaced onto the tower block, with the shutters coming down. We're certainly not finding the rough sleepers inside that we were. The guy who was sleeping in the sheds, who was there for some time, he's now moved on. We're not ever going to eradicate totally people being able to get into this building and rough sleeping. It's a problem that needs to be managed. I can't promise you that no one will get in because of the age of the building, the design of the building. You know, the underneath makes it particularly attractive with all them open, empty spaces for rough sleepers to come in and get in if they can. However, I think that it's increased and improved significantly. So that was in March. And in April, none of the offences on these, there's been 4 offences and none of them related to the estate at all. Are any of you aware of Project Servitor? Have you seen these leaflets? This is basically, we used to have entry points. We used to see police officers standing on entry points. We've gone away from that now. We've got automatic number plate readers, etc. We've got technology which can do that job. And now what you'll see randomly around the city in different places, you'll see a lot of activity from the police. You'll see a police carrier, a number of uniform officers, and also there'll be a number of plainclothes officers out. They've all been trained in behaviour detection. And what they're looking for is people, you get a baseline, they're looking for people who are acting suspiciously. And we're having really, really good results from that. In fact, 3 of the arrests just in this ward were in because of us doing this. And we're getting people with drugs, etc. in the area. So it's really, really working well. I've been attending the recycling areas. I did a late turn the other week. And the problem with, you're talking about the recycling area, what makes it attractive to them, I don't know, is the fact that you can move the wheelie bins. And what they're doing, they're going in that corner. They're not necessarily always sleeping there, but they are taking their drugs in there. That has been a problem with drug taking in that corner. The other night I came along, there was 3 of them there. We just have to move them on in that situation, but we do checks on them, and as a result of that, one of them was arrested because he's wanted by a court. So whenever we come across them, we always check them. We had another one who was sleeping in the basement. We did a check on him. He was arrested and ended up in prison for 6 weeks. So we have had some good results recently, but it's just a case of bringing up, reporting it. We have to come along, do our checks. If there's anything we can arrest them for, we will arrest them, but then we just move them on. I think you're saying there may still be a space there when the recycling goes. Yes, there will be a space, but at least we will not providing a place for the drug taking, which is the problem we've got there at the moment, is making a nice little neat corner where they can hide away and take their drugs.
I think if you increase the lighting, that would be a huge deterrent as well.
Well, did you speak about painting and lighting and...
That'll be something we can look at once we move the recycling
Possibly
area.
CCTV, that would make
It's covered by CCTV now there.
Once the bins have been removed, could they not be closed off that section?
Yeah, possibly.
That's what we're saying, with possible... That's what I would suggest. I do crime reduction, and if I was to do a survey, that's what I would suggest.
That would keep anybody out.
Yeah, because if, as you said, if you create a space undercover, it will attract them, because they're just looking for any nook or cranny that they can get away with sleeping in. So I think we've been doing a lot of proactive stuff with beggars as well. I think we've cleaned up Bishopsgate a lot at the moment. I've been doing patrols and not found many beggars at all.
There's one near Santander. I feel very
It's on the
sorry
police
for
station.
her. The young blonde girl who sits there with a blanket. Do you know
I'm
who
sure
I mean?
that, she's been offered... Don't always feel sorry. It's easy to feel sorry for them if you know the full story. Many of these people are offered so much, they just do not wish to
Oh,
take
right,
it.
I understand there's a backstory. It's just she looks quite pitiful, and I think it's
I think
by
that's
design, because then people
I
think,
think
oh,
that
dear.
gets her a few more pennies. Yeah. Do you think?
I think it gets a lot more pennies, actually, I think a little. If I tell you that some of the beggars along the Bishopsgate corridor are getting £100 to £250 a day. I want to be really clear about that. That's why you see people. Right, so.
How did you deduce that?
Hey?
How did you...
How do we know that? Well, we speak to them on a regular basis. People have got a habit, and their habit is consuming £100 to £250 a day. I don't know if you can conceive of that. We worked out one client was getting 91 grand a year, tax-free. So imagine how much that you'd have to do.
But you need to get a blanket and a bit of cardboard,
So that's why we're four square behind the police in their various efforts.
But I think it has been successful. It's improving. Obviously, let us know. We're not there all the time, but I think it's definitely improving.
I think a while ago there was a serious incident outside the library at the community
That's
centre
right.
again. I heard on the grapevine that there was a stabbing. What actually has happened about that?
That was a dispute. I can't really. I don't know if the case has gone to court yet, so I can't give it. But yeah, there was a known. The two people involved in the incident were known to each other. It wasn't just it was an ongoing situation between them two people. So it wasn't a random.
Yeah.
It wasn't a random criminal offence. It was an ongoing situation between two people.
But has it been recorded as a crime?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
no,
so
it has
it's
been
going through a
tried.
process, is it?
Yeah, I don't know where the process has got to.
Right.
And the other thing to make you really aware of is the phone snatches. There's some leaflets up here as well on that. All around the city, on the periphery of the city, this is what we're getting, the people. You'll be using your mobile phone, walking along, someone on a pedal cycle or even a moped will snatch your phone off you and they'll be gone. It doesn't matter how big you are, male, female, how old you are, your phone will be gone and you will never see it again. So if you need to take a call, stop and be aware, because otherwise we're getting about 3 to 5 a week. It's going back and forwards between us and the Met at the moment. The Met do a proactive campaign. They come over our side and we push it back. That's the way it works. Actually, one thing, the Met rang up last week wanting to speak to us because apparently we pushed all our rough sleepers and beggars over the border. And now they want to do a joint operation because we pushed it all their way, but we don't want them back. They can stay over there. So has anyone got any questions for anything?
Yeah, are we allowed to keep dogs on the estate? Now, I heard a big dog barking. I've seen one.
I've seen
in the
him.
restaurant.
Yeah, sure.
It's in the car park. We went
Yeah.
on the shops.
You'll have to speak to your estate manager on that one, I'm afraid.
Beautiful
Huge
dog.
big black dog, big black like a bull.
We're not allowed to keep dogs.
Was that one? No. I've had a report of a dog on the estate and we're currently investigating that and we're going to be finished it. And if someone's got a dog, then we'll take the correct process to
Yeah, it's
move
a
the dog on
very
and move them on.
looking dog, a huge big black one,
Yeah.
in the basement and was out.
Yeah, we know the property where it's supposed to be living at,
Yeah.
so we're looking at
Yeah.
that
But
moment.
I saw a big dog on the ground floor car park,
You said
actually
that.
behind where the shops are. I'm not quite sure which shop he was actually standing by the door.
Yeah, that's the
But
one.
he was barking and barking,
Did
he
anyone-
seemed quite distressed. It was, I don't know if it was behind Kossoff's, but it was on that side and behind those...
Some of the
restaurants.
vagrants have dogs as well.
Yeah,
to be honest.
he seemed a bit distressed, I didn't like to hear him barking in that way.
Yeah, but we think we know where the dog's living, so we'll check it out.
Anyone else? Anything?
I'm available for private words later on. Or...
It depends how long it goes on. I'm leaving about 8.
Okay.
If not, I'm around Friday.
No,
I'm going to come
I've
see you.
actually told Billy and Paul about what happened to about what happened to me, and they can actually give you the details because I don't actually want to go in.
next by.
Relates to it.
Related to you when you're next by the office.
Okay. Well,
Yes, they'll give you the details. But
Okay.
there's a group of like teenage boys that live on the estate that are sort of like wandering around, and one of them was really very unpleasant, and somebody perhaps needs to have a word with him. But if I knew who he was, I would send somebody round to have
probably
a word
more.
with
I
him.
should
but-
imagine that's more the parents controlling the same issue.
We know they are, we know.
But what he said was like a bit,
Okay.
wasn't.
Okay, so you've reported that.
I told Paul, and I know that Paul will
Right.
relay. Paul said he'd tell you,
Yeah,
so you can ask him and he'll tell you what.
Anyone else? Anything?
I've seen a group of 3 coloured boys hanging around. I've seen them on a few occasions. I don't know if they're residents or otherwise.
Okay. Are they doing anything wrong or just hanging around?
Who knows?
If people are seen hanging around, we do have a youth club running on Friday evenings. I think it's from about 7 until 9.
Okay.
So
In fact, you'd like to direct them to the youth club then?
I know I missed the first part of your presentation, so I've probably been dealt with already. But I know there's a camera up by the recycling bin area, but even yesterday when I was coming past, the same people were there. And you've seen them having sex there, I think, so that's not very pleasant. So.
Yeah, well, I think police were called that time, weren't we? We dealt with that. Police were called that. Yeah, I said as and when call us, and all we can do is come and move them on and deal with any criminal offences that are occurring, which is what we've been doing. So, and if we can,
People parked there and dumped all their rubbish. That happened Saturday. There was a car there and the guy was taking all his stuff out, putting it in the bin.
Once the recycling area is moved and
That's what I mean,
indicated
so-
on if everyone's happy for that to happen, which I will send that out to everyone. Right.
Please, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We've now got Karen at the end there, who's going to talk about recycling.
Hi everyone, so I think Elise and Paul stole some thunder somewhere, the recycling bin area. Following on from Lisa's point about the bins being moved around to form a bit of a barrier, we are looking to try and fix the green bin, which is the food waste bin, in an area to the side of where the general waste bin is at the moment. So we are looking to do that. The silver bin, which is there at the moment, that isn't actually a bin that we deal with, that's actually a commercial waste bin. So we are trying to find who actually owns that bin to return it back to them. So we can deal with the food waste bin, but we can't with the commercial bin because it's not actually ours. So our powers are limited. In terms of the food waste project, which many of you would have seen March, April time, that was really successful. So thank you to everyone who either participates in the scheme now, but wasn't before, or has continued to participate in the scheme. I'm happy to say that participation in the food based service has actually gone up by 11%. Doesn't sound huge, but when you consider those over 200 flats here, that is actually quite a big number. So thank you to all concerned. We will also be furthering that programme in the next couple of weeks. You'll see additional signage and additional stickers located around the estates, and if you're in the tower, in the shoot rooms as well. Obviously pending sign off from Paul, we can go ahead again. And in terms of events, we've got another Give and Take Day coming up on the 4th of July, that's a Saturday, and this will be at the Barbican Estate. So if you're free and you want to come along, bring some ID to prove your residence within the city, and you'll be given priority access at 1 o'clock.
With the bring and take and bring, whatever you call it.
Give and take.
Give and take. Do you accept old linen and towels and things like that?
Yes.
Oh right, okay, you do, that's good. And where is it on the Barbican Estate?
It'll be held in St Giles Cripplegate Church, so it's by,
Oh right, yes.
it's by the girls' school.
Yes. Yeah.
But Paul will be advertising it further on the Facebook group and the newsletter as well.
One more question about the recycling bins.
Yes.
The food waste bin, has it ever been cleaned?
It should be. It should be cleaned every couple of weeks.
It never has been.
Okay, that's something I can look into.
Yeah, please do.
I mean, regarding recycling,
Can I just ask you to hang on? The lady at the back's had her hand up a long time. Yes, yes.
The Salvation Army bin, I can't open it to put things in.
Does it feel like it's jammed, or is it? Because if there's bulky stuff at the back, it can actually prevent it from opening.
it's very heavy.
So it's heavy rather than jammed.
Yes.
So I don't know what to do with my bins.
We can take it to the Give and Take Day on the 4th of July.
No.
Yes.
They're to go to the Salvation Army.
You should offer.
Thank you. We were just about to. So you can bring them in here and bring them into the estate staff, and they'll take them there for you. Not everybody, but you bring them here to the estate staff, to the library, and we'll sort it out for you. Right now, sorry, what's yours?
Regarding the antisocial behaviour, a lot of that's caused by those 2 bins on wheels. I'm just wondering, as a temporary fix, could they not just be put on the other side of the roll-down gates? Just those 2 bins, if it stop that happening completely, because there'll be nowhere for them to
If it's the silver commercial waste bin, we'll be there tomorrow morning, because that should be the other side now, we don't actually have the
They're two bins on wheels, and those are the bins.
But one of the bins on wheels is yours as well.
Yes, the green bin is ours.
Yeah.
So
Could
that's
that be
what we...
temporarily moved to the other side and just put a notice up saying if you want to use that bin, just it's inside?
On the pavement, out of the way?
Or some way where they can't roll it or remove the wheels or something, just so they can't.
We can't remove the wheels because there's a drainage function at the bottom of the bin. That is something we did look into.
And you drill it so it's against the wall?
So that's what we're hopefully coming on to the estate next week to see if we can actually maybe chain it up.
Because that's it. Once you stop making a barrier.
Yeah, as a short term interim measure, that is something we are looking into about fixing it, chaining it to the wall, the green ones.
Before I forget, the last 3 occasions I've left the car park, the door adjacent to the recycling area has been open. And I checked today,
the shutter
doesn't, the door,
no,
the door.
Okay.
I checked today, it doesn't close and it looks like it's out of alignment.
No problem, we'll look into that. If you see that again,
Close
send
it
a phone through or send me an email.
just before the latch clicks.
We'll
Three
be right.
times in a row, because I come out with my budget each time it's going to always check to see.
Because of the front.
Nothing there.
That's got its own door closure, isn't it?
Because of the frame, it keeps going out of alignment. It's because of the way it was built. It has to be.
Just so I'm sure, that's the one by the shutter, isn't it? That's
Right next to the shutter.
Okay.
So
It's always happening to that door.
It's been consistently closed for months.
Yeah, but the door, if you look at the door frame, goes out of alignment, and just because of the way it's fitted and the way it's built, and it happened. I saw it again a few days ago. I was waiting for them to repair it.
No worries, but if ever you see that, just telephone it through, email it through to me, and we'll get it checked out straight away. So.
Two questions. The first is, where can people recycle carrier bags now? Because you can't actually put them into the transparent bags. There used to be a hopper at Tesco Metro, and you could put in your carrier bags, but that went a long time ago. And one over on around local supermarkets, nobody seems to be doing that anymore. Do you know of anywhere where you can give in like Tesco carrier bags to be recycled?
Aside from the supermarkets and the local, Tesco locals, Tesco Metro, Sainsbury's locals, those kind of places. The only thing I can
They don't do it there.
Yeah, if they don't have, the only thing I can suggest is some charity shops take them. But again, I know charity shops also not really in this area.
That's true. And the other thing is that the shops generate an awful lot of recyclable material, but they don't actually put it for recycling. And if I walk down the back of the shops here when they've like done their boxes and so on, there's lots of cardboard and it's actually not in the recyclable skips, if that makes any sense. It's actually like the bin skips. Is there any way of getting the shopkeepers to recycle more of their cardboard? It's a terrible waste.
It's not just recycling. It's things like Kossoffs putting their bread trays straight into the bins. It's things that should be reused.
Yeah.
The shops are getting charged for putting in the bins. Ridiculous.
Now, the shops get charged 1 bin lift per day for the amount of bins they have. Doesn't go to you guys or else, straight to the shops. We're currently working with them and our refuse disposal team to fit lids on there that lock, because they've been accusing you lot of putting some bins in there, which sometimes people do, so it'll be just them. Then we can ascertain how many lifts they actually need. Once we do that, we can reduce the lifts, hopefully saving them money. Then we're going to work with them to get them to recycle things. Because if you recycle your waste, it's cheaper for them than general waste. So we're going to do it on financial savings for them. So yes, there is a way to do it, and yes, we're going to be doing it. Which will come down to food waste as well. Because they can do their own food waste, but they can't put it into current shop because that's for you only. That's not for the shops.
Oh, okay. I thought
And
there was probably.
we do have certain provisions for those with cardboard who put it in a particular area, and that gets taken away.
They don't
Probably
though.
recycled.
They can't be bothered to actually walk to the
No.
special area. They
And
just
that's
come out the
part
back
of
of
the-
the shops and then they just chuck it into
That's
their
part of the
bit.
problem, and we are working with the shops to try to improve that.
Okay, no, that sounds
But
good.
again, it's like everything. If we tell people what to do, they don't want to be told what to do. But if we can say, do it this way because you'll save yourself money,
They see the
they'll do
point.
it. So we're trying to build up to that. It's a slow process at the moment, but we're doing it. So yeah.
This gentleman here, question.
When did you have a session to talk about car park, or can I ask a question now?
For the car parks.
Yeah, what happened is I approached the staff in the library. I asked them if I have guests coming in during the weekend, how can I pay the car park and get my guests to park here? The answer is no way, unless I can register the car prior Friday, prior 5 o'clock.
That's
so
right.
What should I do if I wish to come in the weekend?
If they turn up unannounced, street parking. If they, there's no way for you to get in on a weekend without registering in good time on the Friday. I don't mean 5 to 5 because we won't have enough time to do it. So come in good time, pay the relevant fee, we'll give you the correct parking permit as well, which you must display in your windscreen or you will get a ticket. And we'll put you on the automatic plate recognition system for the ground floor. But there's no other way to do it, I'm afraid. We don't have to, we're not open on the weekend to do that.
I understand all the problems about that, but the reality is that residents need to be able to provide guest parking at the weekend. Several weeks ago, as you know,
yes.
well, you may probably don't remember, but you know, there was a personal crisis in my family.
Your daughter
my
came down to
daughter
visit you.
needed to come to me. It's very difficult to park around here on a Sunday. The shutters happened to be up that day. Lots of space in Brentford car park, so I took a risk and asked her to park in there. The problem is, for you to solve somehow, is to find a way of being able to provide emergency parking at the weekend for residents. Maybe that means that, you know, I don't know, but that's a problem, and it is a requirement. It is a requirement for the residents. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand why it can't be coped with today. But for example, I mean, this is just not a really serious suggestion, but you can have a dummy registration plate, okay, you know, saying, you know, Petticoat Square 123, and you register that on your system, and then you just walk up holding this plate to the camera, and it will open. I mean, I don't think that's going to be possible. But I'd like to leave it with you as a problem, because it's a real requirement from the residents, okay? And I don't expect an instant solution, but maybe you can think about it.
I will think about it. I can't find a solution.
I think you're right, Roger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but actually we can hear and we need to think about it and think through.
Don't you think that would encourage
hang on,
shopkeepers to allow...
Ivan.
Well, yeah, we don't want that to happen. But that's why I'm saying I don't know what the solution is.
Okay.
But it is something that residents we should have.
We will look at that and perhaps need to involve residents over a time, and we need to look at what they do on the Barbican as well.
No, I'm just saying, would it be possible, I know some estates do this, that every resident gets guest passes? And I'm not sure how it's registered onto the system, whether it's done at Guildhall or here.
You would not be able to get an MPR system. Yeah,
No,
it's supposed to be
that's
beforehand.
open parking.
I've got a few ideas in mind already, because that's how I work. And I'll discuss them with Jackie tomorrow and see if they kind of work or not.
So this is going back to recycling actually. Sorry, the larger items, like fridges and fridge freezers and stuff, they should be put in a special place, I believe.
Yes, we've got a place where that can be stored.
I know, obviously, I don't think people leave them there to be recycled, but there's been a fridge freezer there for about 3 weeks now. It's now been joined by a fridge. Take your baby. This last week, 3 weeks. I would have thought you guys would have seen it.
Have you seen Sean the Sheep around the city as well?
I would have thought you guys would have seen it and moved it to the right place. I know it's not particularly your responsibility, but it's also not general. If it's going to be left there, it's going to be.
If anything's left there, bulky items, your team's have to go. I'll do that to go.
Right.
If it's in the bulky collection point and if it's presented correctly, then
No, it's just
then
bulky
I'll...
bins.
Okay, well, if things are done there in the future, these bulky items, we'll move them to the bulky item collection point. And do it. And we'll also on CCTV if it's any of you lot.
But as I say,
I believe that none of the estate staff have seen this.
See, 3 weeks of CCTV.
There's a huge, big,
No, I have seen it, but
and just sits there.
I just assumed it was being picked up, and sometimes we don't get everything that goes on guys' collection, so we'll move it.
The bulky collection point should be emptied every Monday and Thursday.
Yeah, I believe it is that.
We have had fridges and freezers left behind previously, not necessarily on this estate, but in other estates and in our bulking up point in our depot, and they've been left behind because actually they contain food. So the fridge hasn't necessarily been emptied correctly.
this is
Also
the
had
bulky
washing
region, it's just by the bins.
I will move it tomorrow morning.
but certainly our guys will only collect if it's in the bulky collection.
But I assume that the bulky collection people have to drive into the car park to get to the bulky collection, so they're going the right past it. But surely you can just say, if you see anything bulky that's in the wrong place, please take it over.
In a perfect world, yeah, but it doesn't always work that way. But we'll
No,
make an undertaking as the estate team to move them to the correct areas and they'll be resolved.
You're not dealing with a massive organisation with a large number of people, so it should be...
No, you're not, but things don't always work out as smoothly as
However,
you
I've heard Paul now offer 3 times to say a solution to this, and the estate staff will move things in future. So,
And I do also have some estate-specific leaflets here with that was actually a complicated map, but that's where your recycling services are. Obviously, if and when the recycling bins move, we will have to update this. So I shall leave these here for you to take. We've also got magnets to promote what can go into your clear recycling bags, and also some magnets to promote what can go into your food waste caddies as well. Are there any further questions?
Can I say something quickly?
okay, so, yes, briefly.
I just want to say thank you to Karen and her team, especially Sarah, who came down on the estate, because they spent a lot of time walking around, door knocking, giving caddies advice with bags. And fridge magnets as well.
Fridge magnets, yeah, more.
So they took out a lot of, obviously, work time, but it still means they got behind on other work, so I think it was very good to improve the profile of the estate, and I think it was the first estate you've done.
Yeah, it was a trial for us, and it's definitely one we'll be replicating.
It's another first for Middlesex Street, and we can give the thumb up to Golden Lane next, possibly, so we've done the first and it works well.
Have you managed to consider further what happens with the recycling in the tower block when one lift is not working, because we keep having a slight problem? And it's not so much, even when the lift is working, they do go out of service, the one he's using, for an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah,
it's a real nuisance.
I mean, fortunately, as Bob said, it's not happened recently, but it's something I've
But
had
even when
discussion with
both
people.
lifts are working, it's still can be quite awkward.
The only other option is not collecting the waste on that day.
No, I'm
2
just
days,
saying
3
that
days.
instead of having it go out for 2 hours or however long, split it. You know, he's instead of taking out a service and doing the whole of the tower block in one go, causing a great big tower block. When he comes down, empties it, then go to a different place, then come back to the tower block, do the tower block again. So
Okay.
he's breaking it up instead of taking that lift out of service for hours and hours and hours.
That does make a lot of sense, yeah, definitely. Can I talk to you about that separately, Karen? I'll have a chat with Karen tomorrow, probably afternoon, regarding that.
No, I'm not
That
asking
makes
to do extra
sense.
work, because you've got to still
Yeah,
go
if
to
he's doing all the estate, he could do a couple of floors in the
Break
street.
it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. You're very welcome to stay, but equally we'll understand if you want to leave. So
I do need to head off.
that's fine. No, that's
Thank you very
absolutely
much.
fine. Thank you very much for coming.
And if anyone wants further information, it's all there.
Okay, we've already touched on rough sleepers a number of times this evening, so Joe is now going to update us and answer any questions you've got. Joe.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with the point, it shouldn't be left blank, because that will mean that people will switch off there. I guess you knew that would be the answer. Elsewhere in the City of London, when businesses, for example, are designing plazas and spaces around new developments, they are tending now to question whether or not they're going to be designing in problems by the space that they're creating. A classic example, not so far away from here, of a corporate attempt to design an area that's gone spectacularly wrong is at the back of the RBS building near Lehman Street, where they designed a nice little garden between the RBS building and the road at the back, which has now got some comfortable benches which has been frequented by street drinkers and people who may be using drugs in that area. One of the big issues that we need to get across, certainly is one of my big bugbears, is that when there are people using an area like a domestic tower block, there is a default position that people are rough sleepers, and it's quite often the case that they're not. It's quite often the case that they are drug users, IV drug users generally, or people who smoke and crack, and they tend to pass out where they are and make themselves comfortable where they are in order to use. It's not always the case that they don't have somewhere else to go to. However, as I kind of touched on last time, I think Elise has alluded to a little bit as well, this is one of the drugs corridors, so dealers and gear is available in this area, so people don't want to go too far away from the places where they beg so spectacularly as it is in this area, with £100 plus regularly for some of the clients. So you've got a problem which is often not rough sleeping but presents itself as rough sleeping problem. That's the first issue. Then the other issue is that, of course, when people are on the margins, some of those people will be rough sleepers. So you've got a, if you like, a mixed economy of people who are both drug using, some of whom are on the streets, and some of whom have got accommodation. Tower Hamlets, as you're probably all too well aware, has a number of major hostels, Booth House, the Dello and others scattered around, which are not too far away from here. And there are a number of activities that are going on at the moment which is creating some turmoil, and Elise touched on them. I don't want to go on too much about police related matters, but there are a number of high profile, I don't know what you call them, whether they're actions or operations, thank you, that are taking place on an ongoing basis, which I won't go into detail because I'm not a police officer, but there is one called Operation Acton and there is another called Operation Fennel. Where they get these names from, I have no idea. I believe there's a generator, isn't there? They just pull up at random. And those are mainly targeting people who are using the street. So street populations is the jargon that we would use. And by that we generally mean people who are street drinking, using drugs, or sleeping in a way that, rough sleeping in a way that's likely to cause alarm and distress. That doesn't mean to say that they're fitful sleepers, but they're in places that are going to be, should we say, a little bit unnerving to people. Dark passageways, places where people should be trying to get to and from their houses, fire escapes, all that sort of stuff. So the police are working with us, or we're working with the police because it's their operations, to try and work with some of those people who are the most problematic. Okay, so you hear lots of stories that are put about, but I want to be really clear with you. When the police take action against people, it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be with our support. And the reason why is that every other avenue that we've tried to explore for the individuals has been explored ad nauseum. Okay, so I won't go into individual cases, but I will give you an example. There are people in this particular area who have been around for quite some time, who you would assume by the story that they tell, nobody has helped them at all. Well, if only that was true. If only they'd taken one first, second, third, fourth or fifth offer of support, then perhaps my team will be free to do an awful lot more with people as they come new to the streets. There are people who will tell you what they think you want to hear in order to elicit the support that they want off you at that point, which is usually not to disrupt them from doing their lifestyle, but to keep them involved in it. It's really hard for us to comprehend because we're not in their shoes, we're not going to judge people, but we have to make some tough choices as compassionate workers, and sometimes that tough choices, that compassion needs to take a sidestep for enforcement. Okay? So I want to come back to a point that was raised not so long ago by Elise. I know she didn't mean it in the way that it came across, but I want to nail this myth, okay? When the police and ourselves do actions with people who are either sleeping rough or who are using the drugs using the streets in a way that is causing alarm and distress, they're not merely pushing them over into Tower Hamlets, okay? I know that's not what Elise said, but the fact of the matter is that we work very closely with Tower Hamlets SALT team, which is run by Thames Reach, which is their outreach service. We do joint outreach shifts on a weekly basis, and we work very closely with them on joint action plans. Unfortunately, the City of London is a more convivial environment for people to sleep rough in than, say, Whitechapel High Street. For all the reasons that if you've ever been to Whitechapel High Street, you'll know it's quite a rumbustious place to kind of go after dark. Well, if you're somebody who's living on the margins, that makes you very vulnerable, so people are coming in to the more, I would say, salubrious pickings in the city, precisely for the issues that you raised before, for businesses not disposing of their waste in a proper manner. Cardboard is ubiquitous. Yes, it is the bed that people use of choice. It helps just give a little bit of air flowing underneath, which is counterintuitive, but that's how keeps people warm by having an airflow. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is the likes of Eat, Pret, and every other eatery deciding to put their sandwiches at the end of the day in black bags. I've got to tell you, as I said this last time, most sleepers do not need to go ferreting through bags. There are enough places to get food across the capital which offers them support at the same time to come off the streets. So focusing in this area, I want to be really clear. Every person who's genuinely sleeping rough in this area has had offers of some support in order to either come off the street into something that's in the locality, providing they have a local connection. Merely sleeping on the streets of the city doesn't give them a local connection, because I can imagine just how much of a problem you'd have if you could sleep out in the city, then go to the Guildhall and say, I'd like to live on Middlesex Street, please. It doesn't work like that. Okay. Our first protocol is to try and reconnect people to the places where they either have, using another jargon, most social capital, or where they have a local connection. Because whether we like it or not, people can't just pitch up into this area and accept a service or be given a service that comes from the exchequer from the city, because we'd have a lot of problems. I worked in the city since around about 96, not as long as some people who live on this estate, I'm quite sure. But during that period of time, there have been two people who've been sleeping rough and ended up on the streets from Corporation of London or non-Corporation of London accommodation in the square mile. So do the mathematics. The majority of people you see sleeping rough in here are not from the city. So it's our job, my outreach team's job, to get to people as quickly as possible. That's why last time I urged people if they could use the street link number. I don't know if it was put up, because I did say that'd be really good that it was put up. If people do see people sleeping rough anywhere in the buildings, if you report it to that telephone number, I should know it off the top of my head, but unfortunately I'm rubbish with telephone numbers. But the number is a free phone number, please phone it.
I did. I actually came down to the library after I heard you speak, and I picked the number out because I found a lady sleeping in the underpass that goes round to Aldgate Tube Station, and I rang up Street Link, and they actually called me back a few hours later. which surprised me.
Okay.
And when they rang back, they said that she was known to local services, and that she seemed fit and well, and but thank you for letting them know.
Okay, so it's not a, just to finish off, it's not a health check for them, but it's nice that they phoned you back to tell you that. The fact of the matter is that yes, the vast majority of people in this area will be known. I don't care whether we know them or not, you need to still do that because you don't know that we know them, and I think that's, thank you for doing that. The fact of the matter is there are some people who are in the subways, annoyingly, because they serve no purpose, those subways, and they are nearly redundant and will be redundant in the near future. We are trying to deal with that. I can't talk about individual cases,
Obviously,
but I will tell you that a lot of the people who are in the tunnels generally have workers and services that they access regularly in Tower Hamlets. It's just that the subways are nice and quiet at night, and actually they colonise them, and people don't want to go down there, which makes it more comfortable again, blah, 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 and that's the problem. But focusing specifically on your estate, there have been some issues on your estate. I am aware of that. I can't tell you what I know about the cases that we're dealing with because that would be unfair. But what I can say is that there are a couple of cases that are quite intractable. And by that I mean that there's been an awful lot offered to people. And when you come to bridges, there aren't enough bridges in London to have not been burnt. That's how many they've had. So it is challenging. It doesn't mean to say that we can't still keep trying. And one particular case is a client who works, who is very well known to Tower Hamlets, and it's their responsibility to come up with a solution, and they are trying to, but it is very, very, very challenging. So whilst it's difficult, I do respect that the wishes of the estate that we try and deal with it. But as I said before, we're not international rescue, and we can't come in, pick somebody up and spirit them away, unless they're brand new. And if they're brand new and they accept an offer, we can take them immediately to No Second Night Out, which is a number of reception centres across London where they can go and then they can do the work that we would do for somebody who's entrenched, which is connect them back to their areas, sort them out with accommodation, hopefully in their area. And if it's an international stuff, which unfortunately it's increasingly becoming, then we have an avenue for that.
I get the impression that quite a few people don't actually want to go back where they've come from, that they actually like what they've got here, and that even though we don't see it that way, some of them seem quite happy with their situation, even though we may not think it looks good. And I think a lot of them don't want to go back to where they've come from, Scotland, the North East, places like that, because they prefer to be here.
Yeah, and on one level, I can understand. I'm a Mancunian, I came here. But I came here for work, and I contribute to the community. Nobody now can just decide to go to another local authority area and expect a service from there. It doesn't work like that anymore. And I'm afraid the options are very limited, and they're getting more and more limited. Not in the corporation, I hasten to add, but in a lot of other areas, the choices are stark. You have to go back because you're not going to get an offer in that area.
Just a question on the sort of legal position. I mean, if they're coming into the estate's grounds, is that an offence? Are they trespassing, or is anybody allowed in?
So it's a civil offence. The estate asks them, how the law works is the estate will ask them to leave.
Because of what?
Because they're trespassing.
So it is trespassing.
And then if they don't leave, then we would just assist with their removal. But it would be an offence.
So if they continue to trespass, what's the next stage?
Then the estate would have to get assist or something.
We can go for a civil injunction.
Yeah.
I went on a training course Monday, about that. Very informative actually, very good. I'm trying to think who won that. No, but it was a very good one. Oh, it was a separate partnership team. So there's a few things that can be done if we get enough evidence, and there's people there to enforce it as well, to try and work with the police if we identify them. I'm going to be meeting with Valeria Cardina Wrigley from the Safety Partnerships team. I think it's their partnership team, yeah, because we attend the same meeting every month regarding ASB and life sleeps, etc. And she's going to come down and assist me in writing out a pretend injunction and talk me through the process so that I can do it on the estate. If we see any habitual rough sleeper or person causing trouble, we can then go for a civil injunction, get it. If they come on again, call the police, they can immediately take it away and do what they do with people that they
Can I ask a related question? And I haven't yet been on the planning workshop about the re-landscaping of Arsenal's Road yet. I'm going on Friday one. But how are the corporation incorporating the sorts of things that Joe has said about designing out facilities for rough sleepers when you're putting together plans for the space out here?
Is this the old gate?
No, this is the space. Just that immediate outside here.
Victor, will you cover that? We'll cover that later when Victor speaks.
Fine, okay, thank you.
Sorry, just really, because I know I'm taking a lot of time. So the highlights of the donkey. I've just done a piece of work which is fascinating to me. Probably isn't more than ago. 2011, I did an audit because we do it on a quarterly basis, and there was 132 people sleeping rough around the city for the fourth quarter of the 2010-11 year, so just before April. This year there was 193. Okay, they're not all out at the same time, I hasten to add. But the interesting thing is that way over 50% of the people sleeping out now are from Europe or from wider afield. The demographic has changed enormously in just 4 years. I say that because the options are very limited now, unfortunately. Well, I'm not putting a political slant on this. Unfortunately, the way that the benefit system, the way that access to work, the way that access to accommodation has changed, we're left with people whose options are very, very few and far between. And we are finding, very expensive though it is, that we're working very closely with partners from ICE, which is the UK Borders Agency. It sounds really, I never thought we'd be doing this. It sounds really quite draconian, but actually there is very few other options. There are a couple of organisations that will take people in with no recourse to public funds, but there are very few others. And there's very little, I'm afraid, that you can do for somebody who's I'd say a chronic alcoholic with very little English, who's sleeping rough on the streets, apart from saying you need to return.
What percentage of the people are from other parts of the EU?
Okay, from the EU?
Yeah.
Well, so I'm just giving you the figures as I recall them, so a bit of a health warning. 13% of people on the streets currently around the city of London are Polish. About 11% are Lithuanian. And there is, I can't give you a percent on Romanian, but there is 23 people around the city from Romania. I can't tell you whether they're Roma or Romanian, so please forgive me. We don't do a check in that depth. But that's 23 people. I can't do it as a percentage because there were no Romanians when I last did that particular.
Should the government get through its proposals to enforce what's talking about for 6 months if on the EU can't find work throughout, that would affect your work too?
Well, I'd like to say it affect my work positively because we have enough, and I'm being absolutely frank with you, we've got enough work with people on the streets who can do something.
Mr. Chair, whether you can suggest continuing the conversation afterwards,
Yes.
because there's still a lot of things to
Okay,
cover.
yeah, thank you. Yes, very happy with that. Any other burning questions for Joe? No. Okay. Joe, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Again, if you'd like to stay, you're very welcome. If you break, then that's fine. So, Tom, we've got Tom. He's going to talk about some of the things that are available in terms of support to children, young people and families in the city. And we will bear in mind that we're limited time.
Yeah. I'll keep it as brief and concise as I can. Suffering from a weird sense of deja vu, having worked in homelessness and rough sleeping for 5 years, but now I'm here with a new hat on, which is I've been seconded to the early help service. I'm here replacing Jackie Frisbee, who's on maternity leave, so in 7 or 8 months' time, Jackie Frisbee will come back. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come to your evening this evening to meet with leaseholders and tenants, folk that live on the estate. Really appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes, hopefully raise the profile a little bit of this area of work. And I'm aware we haven't got any children or young people here, but I'm sure you know, have neighbours or have people living in your homes that are young. Has anyone ever heard of the early help service? Raise your hand. No. Blank looks. Okay. First, one person perhaps, just as well on here. Early help, let's perhaps start by saying what we're not. We're part of the children and families team, but we're not social services as such. We're not social workers. What we do is we sit on a rung below that statutory remit, and we try to intervene and get to know the children and families and what their issues are in the city, and prevent it escalating further down the line. And so we've got a spectrum of need that we work from across the city in terms of children and families. And we've got universal services like schools and health, libraries at one end. And then we'll perhaps move a bit further on and there'll be some vulnerabilities there, but lower level stuff, and that's where we come in. And then, of course, to take it full spectrum, you've got the child in need, the child protection stuff, fostering, adoption, and all of that. And that's very much the statutory social work end of things. So what we do in the early help service is try and conduct a bit of a different tone to the way we engage, because naturally when people think of social services or social workers, alarm bells go ringing off, and families might be resistant to us having a conversation with them and talking to them about what support needs they might have. It's a consent-based service. So, as I say, we're not going in trying to impose things on families. We're trying to co-produce a plan for what's going to work with them in terms of improving the development of the children, the opportunities for the family, and try and troubleshoot issues that there may be. So the consent-based thing is very, very important. We try and put the child's voice at the heart of the matter, and very child-centric in that sense, and always make sure that we put ourselves in the child's shoes wherever possible. I should sort of caveat all of this in terms of we're very much bound by the safeguarding principles that run throughout the country, and we do work closely with the social workers, and we may, from time to time, if we have a case that we're working with, we will step it up because it is more serious than it first looks, for example. Or equally, if there's social workers working on a case where there's been a lot of interventions, they're able to step it down to us for us to sort of take care of. So what do? I've provided a basic sort of handout there. We're in the process of putting together a glossy leaflet, which, with the permission of you and maybe the resident officer, we may try and leaflet the estate, for example, and get the word out. The service is quite new, which is one excuse I've got for you guys maybe not having heard of it. To say it's a non-statutory service. The city and the children and families team in particular has always done early intervention and early help, but it's not necessarily been put in this guise and had an actual name attached to it. In terms of the work we do, it's very much trying to join the dots between the different services that are there to provide for children's and families' needs. I think she's locked out, Elise. Locked in, I should say. It's a locket, no, that's a locket. We hold a multi-agency practitioners forum monthly where we get together, which we've had this afternoon, Paul's not it, where we get colleagues from housing, from health, from education, from early years settings, special educational needs, the nurseries, the children's centres, CAS being the main one, the school there as well, the independent schools importantly. We try to open a dialogue with them to look at how we can work together, because there's so many strands that cover all of these services. People talk about councils or local authorities or corporation in our case working in silos, and very much the city's getting away from that and joining things up. And the early help service is to do that in terms of looking at the needs of children. So that's what we're about. We do work with a lot of other agencies. We do direct work with children, so we're not particularly office-based. We're based in Guildhall, but we like to get out into the community and have a presence there in the school, for example, and we visit and do home visits and strike up a relationship with the family through something called a common assessment framework, which is a vehicle that's used across the country to sort of again, put the needs of the child together and listen to their needs, what the parents or the carers have got to say, what the relevant professionals have got to say, and put it into a plan, and then track the progress. And we would be the lead professional through that process to make sure that all different teams are doing their little part of the jigsaw. So we'll sometimes provide training or counselling opportunities, parenting advice, short-term financial support is something that we can look at. For special educational needs children, we assist with the city's short breaks scheme and individual budgets, personal budgets, the personalisation agenda, which has sort of gone through adult social care and children's social care, and even in rough sleeping, the city has pioneered personalisation and putting the client or the service user or the child or the family having a bit more ownership of the direction of how we can deliver their needs. And we do that with a certain pot of money, needs-based for the special educational needs, and short breaks as well. So examples would be, we work with quite a few autistic children in the city, and looking at providing respite sometimes perhaps for their parents, or looking for a holiday setting that would suit the needs of an autistic child. Other things that, I mean, someone mentioned earlier about the, what was it that you mentioned, sir, about the training opportunity, the wildlife walk, and there's so many little things going on in the city, so we always try and make sure that we're plugging people into these universal services as well. The Museum of London has been opening 9 till 10 on certain Saturdays, only for the autistic children, because they can't deal with the whole social aspect of having lots of people milling around the museum, and that's worked really well. So little things like that, trying to improve the health and well-being, I guess, of residents as well. And we work with pre-birth through to 18, and if they've got special educational needs or some other disability, then it could be 18 to 25. And we do have quite a mixture. I work with a 17-and-a-half-year-old who was threatened with homelessness, not on this estate I might add, and I got together and held a bit of a mediation session with his mother and him to talk through some of the issues that were going on for him, whether they were related to his behaviour and or his self-esteem, self-confidence, substance misuse perhaps, and looking at a plan and putting together a contract between him and his mum that everyone signed, and putting an action plan in place to keep him in the home, to stop him falling into the homelessness system. And so far that's going quite well, and making sure that he can tie down his job as well. So looking at education opportunities and the support around employment as well that is on offer in the city, working with colleagues in the adult education team, and City Gateway is a very important partner as well, might add. And working with Spice and Time Credits, the City Play, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with, this exciting opportunity that's coming up in the city over the next couple of years as well, trying to get people involved and create that kind of community capacity building, social capital, I think Joe mentioned earlier, trying to install as much of that as we can in fact, children and families. And very much, I suppose, I'll finish on saying, to go back to the tone that we have, we're looking at it strengths-based. We're looking at what the children can do and focusing on that, keeping it positive, the glass is half full. And then, in that sense, that's generally how we develop a good rapport with children and families, and then look at what support we can provide.
Okay. Tom, thank you. I know Tom's put a contact sheet on your chairs, so if you've got any detailed questions for Tom or about how the team works or what services are available, you might want to email him. I'm just conscious of time. Has anybody got any quick burning questions they want to ask now?
Are people referred to you, or can people get in touch with you themselves?
Either, yeah. We would welcome, that's partly why I'm coming to sort of road shows like this, if you like, all of the estates, and the settings across the authority, is to try and encourage that. So, of course, people can self-refer, pick up the phone or email us, and we can have a conversation. We can come and visit the family in their home, or if they want to go somewhere else, neutral, that's absolutely fine.
Could you do a little leaflet that can go in the library, and then people coming in the library with their children might see it and think, oh, that could help us as a family, and then they would be able to get in touch with you, because they might not know about you.
That's a great point. I mean, you guys are so fortunate to have such an amazing facility as well on your doorstep. Libraries are critical, I think, in reaching out to the community, and so we'll always be working very closely with stakeholders like that to help promote that message. And in terms of how we take referrals, we do take referrals from all of the other agencies I've mentioned and many others as well. We've got forms and processes for that. I won't bore you too much with that. Just encourage you to hopefully take away the messages that I've the awareness about the service today. And if you know of any children or family in the city on this estate, then please pass on our details and encourage people to open that dialogue with us as early as possible to identify and then work with the families to meet any needs they may have.
Any other questions for Tom now? No? Tom, many thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And again, if you'd like to stay, you're welcome. If not, we understand.
With my housing account, I'm interested in the gym, so I'm going to stay for that.
Well, I'm actually going to turn the two next two items around because I know there's an awful lot on the project side, and Vincent's got some updates as well on the ramps and the landscaping project. So an item is very good from the gym. So let's just turn that around. Victor, perhaps you might like to talk about the ramps project first.
We are having workshops to actually look at the redesign of the space where the ramps have been removed. We had the first one of those last week. Thank you very much for those who attended. It's tomorrow at 4 o'clock here. We decided to have one at 7 and one at 5 to meet the needs of people depending on their sort of family needs and work needs. The aim of the workshop is to actually capture as many of the issues as possible that people actually have in that area. It's not just about us doing a piece of design and seeing what we think about it. We want to actually capture what the problems are that are there as you see it, so that we can do a design that's responsive to that, so we can solve some of those problems. And we're loud and clear about some of the issues that we've got in relation to how that space relates to the area underneath, around the back of the shops, and through into the servicing area, and how those two things have to really work together and how those connections are very important to feeling safe within the estate. And that will form a major part of our kind of design thinking and liaison with colleagues in housing. The second part of the workshop is to actually look at what people want out of the area going forward. So what positive things do we want to actually see coming out of the design. Once we've actually got all that information together from both sort of sessions that we're carrying out, we're going to be briefing landscape architects on that basis to come up with a series of options. We don't know how many options there are going to be at the moment, but there will be realistic options going forward that sort of balance out the needs that people have expressed. And we will then consult everybody on the estate on those area structures to get a view as to what they think about them, what are the successful things that are shown, what are the unsuccessful things that are being shown. To choose a final design, to build a final proposal that we will then take through to members for agreement to actually implement. Now we're on quite a fast track for this because we put a hold on the design process because when we started to come through looking at the demolition of the ramps, the residents that we were working with said they found it difficult to imagine what it would be like without the ramps being in place. Well, we've had a few months now to actually look at what that's like, and we really want to get on with the job and to be able to get that completed. So we're looking to be consulting in about a month's time on some options that have come out of the workshops and have been designed by landscape architects. And in producing that final design, we will also be consulting with the colleagues and agencies that we consult with on any of our projects for public space where there are particular issues. So we have done at Aldgate, have discussions around rough sleeping issues with specialists in that field and the Safer City Partnership and the City of London Police to make sure that within our design we're not designing in future problems and we are designing out as best we can the problems that are actually there. And once we've actually done that and going towards implementation, we want to get the landscaping implemented and completed within this year. And that's our target to do that. For those who come to the workshop, we'll set that out in a little bit more detail, and we will then be consulting the rest of the residents thereafter.
Can I ask that a number of things, really? The first is that you publish all the information to residents as you go through the process. So, for example, if you're putting together a report summarising what you found from the workshops, you should make that report available to the residents.
Yes.
I've also asked that when you prepare a brief to go out to landscape architects, that that brief is made available to us, so that we can see and examine exactly what it contains. One of the worrying things that I heard from the workshop yesterday, and obviously something you'll take forward, is it seems to me that the wall of the tower and the 3 feet adjoining that wall of paving may not actually be included in the project. And I'm not sure whether that is the case or not, but I mean, any issues like that, we need to know about them, to know whether there are issues, whether you've considered them and ruled them out or not, and things like that. Because certainly, I think everybody here has assumed that in landscaping that space, that actually means, the whole of the flat area, plus the side, the side of the boiler room, with all these windows, the walls going up, perhaps the overhang from the end block of flats above the commercial units at the end. So I think there are a number of assumptions that quite a lot of us have made.
I think the first thing
that's not the case.
First thing I'd encourage is to come to the workshop.
I said I'm coming on Friday.
I think that works for us. I think then you have a real clear idea of exactly the way that works, and the ability to get from you those issues and to document them. What we said we'll do with those who attend the workshop is we will be amalgamating the output from both of the workshops, and then circulating to those people that have actually taken part. The people who haven't taken part will be consulted on the final output from that. We cannot manage a process of consulting with every single resident in the state of every
I think it's very important that it should be that the results of the workshop should be published and available to everybody. Absolutely. There are people who are, who have interests here, who may be away on holiday, maybe somewhere else dealing with a sick relative or whatever. Just because they can't come to the workshops doesn't mean to say that they shouldn't actually be involved in the process.
I think that we will be consulting on the output from the workshops through what we're actually saying, the key issues that have been picked up, and that people can judge for themselves how the designs actually respond to those. There's a lot of very detailed stuff that comes out of that.
I thought I heard
it's not going to be possible. I think when you come to the workshop on Friday, I think it'll be a lot clearer in terms of how that will actually
work. I heard you say that there's something that the people who attend the workshops will get that will not be available to other people.
I think in terms of being able to understand, in terms of being able to actually understand and make a contribution within the context of the workshops is one thing. Being able to actually see the output from that, look at what the key issues are, and be able to judge for themselves whether the designs actually respond to that is what the consultation will be about. It has to be a manageable process. It is a very open process, and we will be making the information, the detailed information available to those who have attended, and we'll be making the output from the workshops available to everybody else.
I can't see why the detailed information should only be available to the people who attend the workshops, because I think that's a completely wrong principle. If you adhere to it, we will publish to everybody the information anyway. So I'm coming to the workshop on Friday. I can't see any reason why you shouldn't publish all that information and make it available to everybody on the estate.
Well, when you come to the workshop on Friday, perhaps we can sort of have that discussion again exactly what this is.
I would like to agree with that, and I think that perhaps this meeting might want to actually take a vote on that, so that formally our view on it is known. I think that the information should be published, and not just be limited to the people who came to the workshop. There are people on the estate for various reasons haven't come, and they can still respond by email, and they can still be fed into the process. I mean, it's not so difficult.
I think for us
Obviously
it's a process.
It's
a process of actually having an awful lot of information from an awful lot of sources, and then having to professionally and openly with the community condense that down into a much more manageable section of information. And I think that's just a normal process of actually working on any project.
Yeah.
It is a very open process.
I think maybe your voices are being heard because listening to what you say, you're obviously some of you are coming to the workshop on Friday. I think let's see how it goes from there.
Just to pick on one of the points, just one of the other points that was made, which I didn't answer, which was to do with the extent of the project and what actually is included in the project. All of the areas that are adjacent to the estate and leading right way through the front of the post office, right the way down to, I don't know if it was Gravel Lane or Harrow Place on the far side. Harrow Place. Right the way down, all of that area between the estate and the hotel is included within the design. What we said we would do is actually show very clearly on the plan exactly what was public highway and what was housing land that was actually included within the estate area. So it's very clear to people exactly which bits of land and who is responsible for the maintenance and care of those various parts that are within the plan itself.
So the question is, are the walls of the tower public land, or are they
But you can
estate
discuss
property?
that.
Yes, Roger Marion has been waiting
Yeah.
for us.
But to get back to this report that's going out to all the people that attended the workshops, all you have to do is make one report. It's available in the library. If people are interested, they will come in and see it. If they're not interested, they won't come in and see it. And that's up to them.
So then if they're not interested, they won't go to the workshop.
That's it. If you're not interested,
I think that's
can't
a very,
say
for
anything.
me that's a very sensible approach.
Yeah,
You know, and you can't say anything about it because you're not interested in
It's like
whether
going to a meeting. Everybody who attends the meeting gets to see the minutes. Do you agree the minutes? Now post it up for everybody else to see.
Yeah, there's no reason why it can't be done. So, Julian.
So just going back to really what Roger's alluding to, and I think you also alluded to, Victor, is that obviously the footpath that was before is corporation, or belongs to Middlesex Street, the rest of it is public space, and you were saying that you're going to do the whole of the space.
Can I just make a comment? The project is going to include what's on the estate and public space. The point about what's public space is what gets maintained by the City of London later and what gets maintained by the estate later. That's the relevant part, not whether we get the wall done or not, because that's part of the project being funded.
The point I was going to say though is that you were saying that obviously the whole of that's going to be made available to the public. So effectively the estate is losing some part in private or whatever, it's estate land, and now it's going to become all public land. So really, we don't really want to be picking up any of the costs through the service charge for things that are going to be available to the public.
I think this is something we want to be really clear about.
Yes,
Actually,
do.
you
It needs to be clear about it because it'll be something that bites us later on.
Yeah, not to say that we're doing the cost, make it very, very clear about what's actually being done by the City of London, the Highway Authority, and what's being done actually as part of the work.
And the project is
which area it fits.
When we moved the recycling bins inside here, the highway was actually moved in underneath the estate. So it's been done before. And the double yellow lines came down and actually now go underneath the building. That didn't used to be highway, that used to be private. So surely if that can happen there, it can happen here too.
Yeah, it can be looked at. Okay.
So we need to take that
And
away.
this is one of the
That's
issues
valid.
that we picked up, is once we've actually done both the workshops, is to bring the issues back to the people who know it much better than we do, the planning side, and really look at that detail of exactly what makes most sense in terms of how we manage the...
That's a matter of the Common Council and the not us.
Can I just make one comment that's not really covered by the funding of the project itself? Signposting. Now, you talked about signposting just outside, but signposting really needs to be further afield and not just thought about by your project. It needs to be thought about by the housing, because the number of times I go around the building and they can't find the tower block when they found the estate, so they're trying to ring 7C on Harrow Place, and it's ridiculous. It needs to be looked at in conjunction with housing, because not just signposting to the library, signposting to the tower block, and from further afield as well, if you don't mind.
In setting the project up, we identified that when the building was done to have the library and the community centre in here, there wasn't a budget that was allowed in that project for signage. So you have something and nobody's being told where it is. We pick that up in setting the projects up. So there is actually a budget sort of allowance that's there for signage for the wider area and locally to actually...
so you could be under your budget.
And it is actually within that wider area to actually do that.
That's what
while we're doing that, if it's an issue of not just directing people to where the estate is, but there's deficiencies in the wider signage network in terms of getting people to the right parts of the estate, particularly where the entrances have changed, we'll pick that up at the same time as part of that review.
So can I run back to what, because I think I just make sure I understood something correctly. That suggestion was made that when these two sessions are over, you'll have a report and then that will then be sent to the people who are at the meeting and also will be made available in the
Yeah, I
library.
think that's
And then residents will be told that it's in the library, which then solves the problem. So it's not, and possibly online, it's not, it's more convenient if you can do that. So.
Well, if it gets to the people, if it gets emailed to the people at the meeting, it will be online.
As long as you've got permission
Yes,
to
but I
share.
think that's
yeah.
not the issue. The issue is that should be done officially by the city, not ad hoc by the residents.
We're happy, it's just making sure that the information that we're giving out through consultation is manageable for task force voters, rather than it being too technical. For those that are interested, we will make it available here and online as well. Looking to colleagues to actually give us a hand with that, making sure it's large.
I think it's just a general concern about openness, not that people may not respond, but they like the idea of being able to respond.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you for coming. Right, I'm going to move to Amy now because we do need to get to the update of the major work. So Amy, can you run us through? Because everyone's got a copy of the
I have indeed. Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, my name is Amy Carter. I'm one of our asset programme managers. So my responsibility is working with Karen to plan these projects and put them in place. I believe you met my colleague Lachlan at the last meeting, those of you who were here. There are two of us, so we share the projects. So some of these I'm mainly responsible for, some of them he is, but I'm here to give you an update on all of them. Okay? So on your chair, you should have had, and there's some spares in case you haven't, this big colourful table which is the programme for the next 5 years. And the document that goes with it, which has the staple in the corner, is the update on each project. So my intention is first to give you a bit of an overarching point on the projects, which is that for most of them, we're in very much an information gathering stage. So we've got a lot of surveys either going on or coming up. So I know some of you have volunteered to have your balconies surveyed in the tower, so thank you very much for that. Those have started from yesterday, and they'll be going on for the next few weeks. Residents will have individual appointments for those. The second one, which has gone on this week, is the survey for the redecorations. So we've had a surveying firm come out and have a look, and they'll be feeding us back a report, I think, by the end of this month. So those are the first two which are moving, I suppose, the fastest. And just to reassure, I know there's been some concerns about consultation and things like that. Once we have the reports back and the results back, we will be consulting with all residents on what they'd like to see happen. Obviously, the challenge for me at this point is until I know what I get back, it's hard to know how I'm going to bring it out to you, so bear with me. I'm also very keen to have any input from residents on how you'd like to be consulted. So if you have a particular preference, please do let me know. My email address and phone number are on the top of any letters that come out to you. Paul can also provide it if you need. Please do let us know, because I'd far rather consult with you how you'd like to be consulted rather than keep bashing it one way, because I know there's been some concerns from residents that surveys aren't the best approach or things like that. So I'll now run you through the rest of the projects. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. One at the start.
If at the end decisions are made to block in the windows, block in the balcony of the window, if a particular tenant doesn't want their balcony blocked in, will they have a right to refuse to have that done?
This is something I'm still checking with our legal team about where the demise of the lease is and what can and can't be changed. So that's something I am looking into. And as I say, once we've got these options in, that's something we can also get more detailed advice on. So as I say, it's not a no, it's not a yes, so do bear with me.
So what do you mean by demise of the lease?
As in where the, if there's a change in terms of, the gentleman gives the example there of blocking in terms of the whole, where the kind of line of the lease is, sometimes balconies aren't clear, so that's something I'm checking with our leasehold team. In terms of where the external wall ends and where the balcony begins, if that makes sense.
The balcony doesn't jut out, it's an internal balcony, so I don't think it'll be an issue.
Okay, as I say, I'm checking it with our leasehold team. That's what I mean, I'm checking that because that's not something I know at this point. Okay, so I've already updated you on the balcony doors and windows, which is the first one in terms of the survey. And the next one on the list is the concrete testing repairs. You may or may not be aware, this one is a combined project with a couple of other estates. So the tender is out at the moment, we're due to get the bids in this week, and that's due to start this summer. As I've said in the report here, we're not quite sure on the timetable yet of which estate will be first or whether they'll be concurrent. That's something that will come in with the bid, so we'll update you once we've got that.
My question is really, is that a single contract for multiple estates? And if it is, how are you going to ensure that our estate is only billed for costs directly associated with our estate?
The way it's been advertised is in 3 lots. So it may well be one contract with one contractor. It may be different contractors for each one. So it depends on the value for money that comes back and how those are scored. We have a very clearly itemised tender return which goes out. which lists each aspect of each block separately and the requirements for each block separately so that they can be billed appropriately, including things. I know the query's been raised about the car parks and how those are separated out from the residential blocks, and they very much are from the tender return stage through to the billing.
Sorry, just another question. Car parks, but is the podium separated out from the rest of the estate?
The podium is separate on the testing schedule as well.
And the shop fronts as well, I presume.
I can't remember that off the top of my head, let me check. But I believe in terms of how it would be billed, absolutely, but I don't know if it's quite in the specification, so let me check.
Can I just add, just for a moment, in case there are any other concerns, we do refer to this as concrete testing. It's actually beyond that, it's really external fabric. And I think that's quite important across some of our different estates because there are different makeups. And it's something that's come up as a query on some other estates. I just want to clarify that could involve some brickwork, could involve cladding. So although we call it concrete, there is provision within the specification for other types of fabric to be tested as well.
Another question, and I know it's obvious that the front of the shops should pertain to the shops, but also the roof that's above the top level flat also should have some connection to the shops below because they are benefiting from it indirectly.
Okay.
So that's.
They have a share of the roof.
They should have a share of the cost of the
I mean, that will be determined again as the terms of the lease as well in terms of their
I'm not a long
contributions.
leaseholder, but if I were, I'd be concerned about it.
Yeah, so with regard to that, with terms of the long leaseholders, the podium obviously for this conversation was a public space up until fairly recently. So therefore, I guess any costs that were involved with the podium would be picked up generally by the public space budget, whatever that was, rather than service charges or leaseholders.
I'd have to say, like Amy, I don't know the details of the lease. I mean, our remit at the moment is looking at the project on an estate-wide basis from our concrete testing. In terms of the apportionment, we would work very closely with the service charges team in making sure those apportionments are correct. And it's not unique to this estate. We're doing this on many others.
No, but it's probably unique that the public space has now become enclosed. That's the point.
Well, again, we've got other areas. I mean, I'm also responsible for the Barbican, so again, I've got a mixture there of private areas and public space areas. I'm not aware of the background in terms of that space becoming private space. If it is private space, then ordinarily it would be picked up within the curtilage of tenants and leaseholders.
But we do need to look at that. That has been raised with me before, and we do need to be very
If
clear.
it's been public space for the last, since 1970 or whatever, until a year ago, and the period of deterioration was while it was public space. And it's only been private space for 1 year.
That's a very good comment.
That's an issue.
No, it's a good point, and we've heard it, and we need to look into that and be very, very clear about that, because you're right. We need to know exactly what the legal status is.
And it relates to it being public space. If you walk down St Catherine's Docks, there's an office building at St Catherine's Docks, and it's got a sign on the glass door saying, if you wish to access the Riverside Terrace, please ring the bell. There's a public right of way through our building, but it's actually an office building, and the terrace is public. I don't see why the podium cannot be public space with right of access through the library, and a sign being put up on the door of the library. If you wish to access the podium, please ask at the desk. Okay, that's the only reason why that shouldn't be the case, and then it can become public space.
Yeah, we can explore that. I mean,
during office hours and libraries open, and it will stop undesirable people coming in. It will stop. There's a concierge there. It will stop drug users coming in. It will stop all the problems.
Well, it's a good point. I think there will be other residents with different views. So, and it's too late in the day to get into that argument right now, but I think it's a very good point, and I think we would explore it, but we would consult everybody about that. There will be some very, very different views about that.
We're sure we already got consulted when it happened the first time.
Sorry?
Did we not already get consulted when it happened the first time?
I think you were, weren't you?
Well, it's my understanding that you were, but I have said I will look into that.
We were consulted when it was
closed off.
It was the residents
I was here when that
preferred
happened.
thing.
That happened about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, didn't it?
When we were discussing phase one, phase two, the
Yeah,
flats.
that's right. So yeah, it was consulted with.
But the other options, these options, that wasn't considered.
But we will look at that. No, I don't know, but we will look at that
There was
possibility.
no
But I'm also looking into exactly what was consulted on.
There's a multitude of possibilities that were not considered or discussed upon because how far do you go with it? It's, yeah, I think your point, that could be an option.
Can we? So we've heard that. It's recorded. We are going to look into it, and it's we'll need to look into it in some depth. So we can't give an answer now. Okay. Right.
Lovely. I'll keep it brief. I know we're running out of time. The next one, as I briefly mentioned, the redecoration survey has already taken place. So again, once we've got the results from that, we'll feed back to you. The next project on the list is rewiring. Sorry, did you have?
Sure.
And there'll be a survey done of that as well. So again, once we know the extent of the work, we can give you some more information on what will be done and when. The next two projects are combined, so I'll cover them briefly.
The consultation we had last night was a far better exercise than the survey, because I'm still not satisfied with the survey, and I doubt very much that very many people will be satisfied with the result of the survey. Now, the exercise that was done last night and will be done again Friday, I feel is a far better way to have gone, and we might consider doing the redecoration again using that sort of format.
Oh, sorry,
it was a workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
More than happy to consider. Just to clarify, sorry, the survey I'm talking about was the physical survey by the surveying firm. Apologies. But I quite agree, as I say, more than willing to consider other options for future consultation, so please do let me know. Okay, so the next two are heating and ventilation, which are being tackled together because they're so interlinked into how they can impact on the building. So again, we'll be appointing a consultant and they'll come out and have a look at the building, make some assessments, and then again we'll consult with residents. CCTV, I think we've covered quite a bit earlier in the meeting, but just to confirm the works have been done on that one. Front doors at Petticoat Tower, that was one of the matters that was raised in the meeting in January we held when we had that drop-in session. Those have been looked at as part of the redecoration survey. So again, once I get the report back on that, on the condition, then we can look into doing further works if necessary and programming that in.
On the tower front door, we have a problem with it not closing.
Okay.
The easiest solution is to put a handle on the outside, because the only way you can close it now is to pull the lock.
Yeah.
And eventually the lock is going to break.
That's a very good point.
I'll take that back, thank you.
Which is part of the problem you've got on the new
Yes,
entrance to the tower from the car park.
Yeah.
Where they put the handle as part of the lock, every time you pull it, you're moving the lock and the barrel keeps turning. So instead of having that very bad system that keeps damaging itself, a handle is required, I would have thought.
We've asked for that to be done, haven't we? I believe, with handle, or at least to put a more sturdy...
No, they put the more sturdy on, but it's not going to work, because every time you pull that, it pulls the lock barrel and you're making damage to the lock barrel.
No problem. We'll request they put a handle on both the front and the back door.
Yep.
Simple.
And that, and by the way, that not be repairing again.
A bar handle, not a handle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I mean.
Yeah, it's something you can.
Yeah, not a handle.
You mean like just a bar that?
Yes.
Lovely. And the final project on the list, this is a little way off in the future, is the full lift refurbishment. So obviously, in the meantime, do keep reporting any issues, because we've committed that if the issues become unserviceable, we'll bring that project forward, but at the moment it's still set in the future. So that's everything on the list. Does anyone have any questions?
Looking at the list, I mean, if you add it all up, £4.5 million, okay. My question is, for the City of London tenants, what impact will that have on their weekly rentals over that period?
Well, the rent, may I answer?
Yes.
The rent wouldn't go up in proportion to that. So there are already funds in what we call the housing revenue account, which are accrued over the years as rent is paid, and that's where these kind of repairs bills are paid for. So it's not an interlinking, works go up, rents go up kind of situation.
Okay, and that's interesting, because obviously, if you're a long leaseholder, the situation is very different. So I think when you consider how these works are introduced and when they are introduced, you should be very aware that the people who it affects very seriously financially are the long leaseholders and not the City of London tenants. You also should bear in mind probably that some of the non-leaseholders are exiting on the tenants, and landing them with anything between £10,000 and £30,000 worth of additional service charges over this period of time is going to be a very serious problem for some people. Even if you offer loans, paying off £30,000 when you're living on a pension and you don't have private funds is a very serious problem.
We are very, very much aware of that, and just as on other estates, there will be a package of measures of support put together to help you, and that will, you know, you'll get individual discussions on what your circumstances are and how we can help, and it won't, you know, there will be loans and they will be over a long period of time, but there will be other options as well.
The rewiring, will that be taken into consideration also for the long leaseholders as well as resident tenants?
And by into consideration, do you mean work's done for them as well?
Yes.
That's not something we can do, but what we do is we'll do the works up to what's called the consumer unit within the property, and if the wiring is safe in the leaseholder's flat, that can be reconnected. If it's not, that is something the leaseholder will need to do.
But surely, especially in the tower block, if the whole lot isn't exactly the same, by tenants and leaseholders, the whole block should be uniformly rewired.
The block will be, but within the leaseholder's own area, that's not something we can compel them to do. But if it is unsafe, we can refuse to reconnect it to the system.
And that seems a bit ridiculous, because some of the leaseholders will have enough expense without having to get further expense with having the rewiring, stopping outside their doors, sort of thing, or going into their boxes and stopping there. Surely it's better to have everything uniform, especially in the tower block, rather than bits and pieces that are done and not done.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the gas inspection. I'm sure there are leaseholders who have gas in their flats and don't get inspected, but the tenants do. Consequently, they should all be uniform.
If I pick up comments on both the gas and the electricals, the city has no obligation and no legal course to actually enter the premises to do that type of work. What we do on the gas side of things is that with our service contractors, Carillion, they will make the service available, but it is at cost to the leaseholder. One of the things that came up before was if we are doing works and we have a contractor on board to do works, the question I was asked was, can that service be made available to leaseholders? What I would say is it's one of those things that we can certainly look into with that contract, but it would have to be at leaseholder's cost. It would be a separate contract between the leaseholder and that company. All we would be able to do really is facilitate that connection, but we will not be rewiring within leaseholders' homes.
I'm not a leaseholder, but if that were to be the case, you'd have that, I presume, the cost apportioned, so the same cost as you would be charging for
that's really what we would want to look into. It's whether or not leaseholders feel that that's a good deal for them. And as I say, the contract would have to be with them, but certainly what we would try to broker is the same, you know, schedule of rates and things like that that's, you know, available to both leaseholders and tenants.
If the tenants are updated but the leaseholders are not, what risk does that pose to everybody in the block?
Again, the city's obligation, as Amy said, is up to the consumer unit. It's like with the gas. I would love to be in a position to make sure that we could go into every property to check gas boilers, but we simply don't have the obligation or legal recourse to do that.
Could I bring up that flats that are let out, and there are other local authorities that oblige landlords to do that? That would cover quite a lot of flats in the estate.
If we are the landlord of a tenanted property, then we're required to do annual gas safe checks.
And so
what I'm saying is that there are local authorities
Somebody letting their flat
yes,
out.
private landlord, absolutely. You know, the same
The city
rules
doesn't
around.
do that, does it?
No,
But they
Specific
can't
to
agree to let it out, and then they could pass for a gas certificate, I guess, because you're supposed to do that anyway.
As a private landlord, the same as a local authority landlord, you are
Yeah.
required to have a gas safe certificate.
So that covers quite a lot of flats on the estate.
Sorry?
That must cover quite a lot of long leasehold flats on the estate.
But the difficulty for the city is it's not our obligation, it's down to who is then that private landlord. So as a long lessee, if you're then subletting, you become the private landlord, it's still your responsibility as a leaseholder to provide that gas safe certificate for your tenant.
But I'm saying that what I'm saying is that some of the authorities where
The city,
license to
the
do
city
that,
of the
so-
council can enforce it. The city of the council.
So that would be more environmental health.
I know somebody enforces it.
It would be, yeah, I mean certainly things
There is
like...
enforcement.
There is enforcement, certainly, and if, I mean there's been many fairly high profile cases, most of them have actually been to do with private landlords where there's been issues. And that's when people like environmental health would get involved. Also, if the premises was a disrepair issue and the tenant reported it as disrepair, they would get involved then. From our point of view, we can't do a lot about it. I would love to, but we really can't.
I was just going to go back to Amy's point about I think when Roger asked about whether the tenant's rent would go up, and obviously it wouldn't.
I said not in relation to
Well,
the
not in relation
repairs,
to
just to clarify.
Yeah, sorry, it's not in relation to that. But obviously the cyclical works for interior and exterior painting, etc., I think which is 10 years and 5 years, I think, for internal.
It's usually external 7
and external.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think there's also, I also read somewhere that they were going to increase it, this is quite a few years ago, based on the fact that there's more footfall in entrances. Well, that's never actually happened. But my point coming back to is that obviously over a period of time, the last 12 years since we've had redecoration, or maybe longer, 13 years, I'm assuming the fund has been grown for the rental, from the money you're getting from rents to go towards a budget for redecoration.
It doesn't work quite like that.
It doesn't work like that.
No, it's not a kind of a
I knew it
slush
wouldn't.
fund for a particular thing. Effectively, the HRA is a one whole account, and it's drawn down upon as required by each contract. It's not compartmentalised at any certain point for a certain use, effectively.
Going forward, I know...
Can I just clarify that? We are required to hold monies in reserve, but it is not a slush fund and all of the other terminologies.
My point I'm trying to make is that it hasn't been decorated for such a long time, and I think you said something to say that the internal steps have been done in the tower in 2001-2, but in fact there is no walls to be painted inside the tower, it's only painted on railings and so on. So effectively nothing's been done for sort of 12 years. But I've been in for since '98. Internally, it's never been painted since I've been there. So what you're asking is the leaseholders to pick up a cost which has grown and grown and grown over a period of time. So we've been stung at the end of it. And you're saying that the pot hasn't been put aside to deal with that from the rents you've been getting from the tenant.
Well, I think painting's quite an interesting example actually, and I won't take up too much time. And we all know that there's been the different phases proposed, and obviously we're not moving forward with phase 3. You're absolutely right. In terms of maintenance, it should be done on a cyclical basis. I guess the only comment I would say to that is that the specification would probably still be the same. So, for example, you would still put make good and 2 coats of paint. How frequently we do that, make good and put 2 coats of paint, is we could be doing it at 5 years, we could be doing it at another 5 years. It shouldn't be, if we're doing painting now, at current rates, it shouldn't be any more expensive because we will still apply that same specification. Do you see what I mean?
Apart from the walls being gouged out, and there's all sorts of other...
And certainly the making good, there may be some issues there. But it's still the same specification. It's not like we're taking stuff back to the bare metal and back to bare walls. So the fact that we haven't done it, it won't be back to bare metal. Are there any other questions on the Major X?
With the rewiring, a lot of the flats were rewired when they were they had new bathrooms and kitchens.
Oh yes.
So they're not going to be rewired again, right?
Not again if not needed, no.
Right, so
That's
it's
partly what
not
the
all
assessment
the
will be for.
flats
No, not
that
all.
will be, but you have a list of the flats that have to be done, that were not.
We'll
in
have
that.
some records from that previous project. We're also doing an assessment of things like the communal areas.
Everyone who gets a new meter, the council, not the landlord, has to be notified of the electrical, whatever it's called, kept of it. So there is actually a section in the City of London that records all the new meters and all the new wiring.
Ultimately, we won't do anything that doesn't need doing.
Right, but you will do what
does
does
need
need
doing,
doing.
absolutely.
Right.
On the electricals, what usually happens is you survey, they may identify some more urgent works, and we do that straight away.
Mm.
And then if it's a full rewire, then that would be programmed in to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask one thing? Sorry, I have been listening. You said that if you do the electrical works to the outside, up to the meter, whatever, or leaseholders' flats, and if it's not safe to reconnect, you won't reconnect.
Yep.
At what point do the leaseholders know it's not safe to
We
reconnect?
will give plenty of notice.
Okay, it's not, oh, I'm not doing it today.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so
Plenty
they've
of
got the
notice.
option of
Yeah.
doing the job, okay. Good.
Plenty of notice effectively to get it tested in advance, but there is a whole programme of work that runs up
Yeah.
towards it before they're on site doing
So
that.
they'll be in good
They will
time.
know what's going on. Absolutely.
I mean, the only caveat I would say there is that if something is really, really unsafe,
Mm.
then
Can
they
you
have
just
the
go for the
authority
inside?
to condemn.
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah. Make sure everyone's safe and secure.
Then if the electrics are not inspected in the leaseholders' flats, how are they to know they're safe or unsafe?
It's inspected up to the point where it meets, so it is inside the flat, and it will be disconnected if it is unsafe.
Now, what he's asking is how do you know it's unsafe inside the flat?
Within the
Who
flat.
and when do you inspect that, or who inspects it? Or do you have to
It is-
provide a certificate that it has been inspected?
We will test, as Amy says, up to the consumer unit. Are you talking about if there was like an unsafe socket within a flat or something like that?
Checking the main fuse boxes and that within the flat, you won't know because that could also cause a fire, and you know, over this time.
I mean, Ivan's point is that basically it's a public safety issue for everybody living in the building.
Yes.
So you may say yes, legally, but in terms of all of us living in this building together, doesn't seem right.
But if it's unsafe, they won't be reconnected.
No, well,
But there are no-
How do you know it's
The contractors
unsafe?
have done this for years and there are provisions in place. We may not know exactly how it's done, but we can certainly find out for you and feed it back. But
We could
there'll
certainly,
be tests they can do, electrical things that touch together and light up or don't light up if there's a break in the circuit. So there are ways to find out.
we would certainly encourage leaseholders to have their electrics checked and their gas, just as anybody would who owns a property. That's part of the responsibility of maintaining a property. What we don't have is any right or any duty as landlords to go into what is essentially a private home. So that we just can't do that. Okay. I'm just going to talk very, very, very briefly about the gym, partly because we are out of time. I did have some beautiful photos to show you of bits of equipment,
My fault.
couldn't get the screen to work. So what I will do is get Paul to print out some copies so that you can, if you're interested, you can come and see them. But we are going to have a couple of workshops, at least one, maybe two, for anybody who's interested one way or another in the possibility of an outdoor gym. So I'm only going to give you the bare bones now, and we'll go into detail when we actually sit down to look at it. So just to explain very briefly, we had a request from two different estates that we look at the possibility of providing a few bits of outdoor gym equipment, it's like grown-up play equipment basically, on their estates. And the idea was to provide opportunities for people who can't use a gym for one reason or another, or wouldn't feel comfortable using a gym, maybe couldn't afford it, whatever. So provide opportunities for people like that to still exercise. And when we looked into it, there's lots and lots and lots of evidence about how exercising outside is extremely good, all sorts of things about the take-up of gyms, and a whole raft of people who don't use gyms and yet still have a need for something or other to encourage them to exercise.
May I say something about
go to a gym regularly,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't want to really work on a gym outside.
No, absolutely,
I
and you
think-
might not, but other people
Yeah.
might.
Yeah.
So this doesn't stop you doing whatever is right for you. But this is why we thought about it.
Yeah.
So just let me explain the whole thing, because I know some people are for it, some people are against
Yeah.
it. So, and that's what we need to look at later, not tonight.
But there only needs to be a couple of pieces, like a
Exactly.
running machine or a bike. It don't need to be
They're
a
not
lot
like
No,
that.
exactly, quite. Anyway,
Not to be at the ground floor.
okay, can I,
outside the window.
so outside being the key thing here. So we looked at what other places have done, and it was quite interesting, particularly in Camden, where they have a lot of outdoor gyms on different parks and things, and they found by surveying those...
parks.
Oh yes, it's different, absolutely different,
Yeah,
and some
parks.
people think it's wonderful, but you might have your own couple of bits of gym equipment, and some people clearly don't. But where people were using them, they found that they were used very widely by people of all ages and ethnicities and so on, and also they were very much used by people who didn't previously exercise and by people in areas of quite high deprivation. So we're not experts in this field at all, so we asked Fusion, who are the city's partners in terms of providing leisure facilities, to do a bit of a feasibility study for us. First of all, to look at, we had no idea what they would cost, we had no idea about the benefits, the safety, the servicing, all that kind of thing, what surface you'd need to put them on, what suppliers there were, what you would need in terms of a site. And so we asked Fusion to look into all that for us, and also to get some idea of what residents might think on each estate. So that's what they did. Some people weren't happy with the questionnaire. In hindsight, had we realised that people would be unhappy, we would have looked more carefully at that questionnaire, but quite honestly, it was a piece of work that we just asked them to do for us. And they did it in the best of intentions. What came out of it all was that there were 3 estates where there was a sort of combination of practicality, so there were possibilities for having the equipment, and also there was some interest. Those were at Avondale Square Estate on the Old Kent Road, where they've got room for quite a lot of equipment, so they could have quite a large one, and people there are very, very keen on that. Isledon House, which is a very small estate in Islington, and part of that is sheltered housing, and the sheltered housing residents there are particularly keen to have just a couple of pieces of very simple equipment that they can use to exercise on. And the other place where that came through was Middlesex Street, where it was recommended that potentially you could have one sort of multiple use piece of equipment placed somewhere, or 2 to 3 very simple pieces of equipment to use. Those are just at the moment, we've just identified those as possibilities. In terms of here, we've identified some funding, not housing funding. It was very important to us that this didn't cost residents anything. So because the city has a duty to public health, and this is a very big part of the city's agenda, we found some funding that would pay for it.
And that's continuing funding, or just
and we would continue to maintain it and so on. There have been 2 possible locations identified in the feasibility study. One is to have one piece of multiple use equipment in the bamboo area, or to have 2 or 3 pieces under the blue awning. That's been suggested, but that's open for discussion. It's all open for discussion. We suggested that actually, again, the city would pay for Fusion or some other provider to provide one-to-one support to help people learn to use it if they wanted to make the most of it. And it's very important. We've had people say, oh, well, other people will use it. It is for residents only.
Big question. Has anyone, because when I read the report of the study, I didn't answer it back, but there was nothing about noise.
No. Okay. And that's one of the things we need to understand. If it's going to be, if people are worried, it's going to be noisy.
They clank, they have noise. And this is a closed environment, everything echoes around. And you close a gate, you can hear it.
Okay, and that's a very, very valid view. What I'm saying is, we're not here to discuss the ins and outs tonight because we haven't got time, and actually, we're going to have a couple of workshops where people can come if they're interested and say this is what I'd like, and they can come if they've got worries like that, and we will note that anyway whether you come or not, because yes, I can understand that noise could be a problem. We're not definitely going ahead with it. We haven't definitely decided anything. What this is intended to be is a really nice positive offer to residents to have something which would be a nice facility to have. If in the end it proves that actually it's too difficult, or it's going to be too inconvenient, or there's too many people who've got too many objections, then actually it would be a waste of our time and the city's money to proceed with it. So it's really an opportunity for people to discuss it. Sue?
If you can't get one on the estates, is there any way that one could be got on one of the city parks or something?
Yes, I'm not sure where that might be, but one option might be to consider some bits of equipment maybe as part of the landscape.
Just on the riverside, we actually do have exercise equipment part of the landscape.
Maybe it should be in the artisan suite space
on the
podium. But I think the important thing is you said there would be some interest. There's actually very little interest. There's only 14 people, I think, who said they might.
Absolutely, there was only.
And so there's very little positive interest.
But there was some, and also.
I accept that it's been presented with the best of intentions, but I think most people like the podium as a quiet, tranquil space. And ideally, we'd like to make it quieter rather than louder. And so there's been very little interest. And so unless something radically changes, I don't think there's any mandate for the City of London, even if it's paid for, to put that onto the podium.
Can I ask a question? Can I make a suggestion? We have how many people in this room? Just ask for a show of hands who's interested, who's not, and that will.
Well, no, that's actually not fair, because there will be people who filled in the questionnaire and said they are interested who aren't here. And also we've had feedback from young people from a completely different source, not through the questionnaire. And as we know, most young people you don't get many young people to these meetings, and we've had feedback from them that there is interest. So I think it's fair that we have a couple of workshops, we publicise them very widely, and we will hold them again, one in the day, one in the evening, so that people get the chance to come, so that we do get those, so that everybody gets the chance. But we are not, as I say, there is no point in us flogging ourselves through trying to get something in place if there really isn't a demand. So let's just invite people, as we've said we would, to discuss.
I think if you put us in Artisan Street, we certainly won't get the rough sleepers and the druggies using it.
But can I respect this is a consultation meeting?
No, it's actually an information meeting.
Is this something that people are perhaps going to use during the summer and then just tail off in the autumn, and it'll just be like a white elephant for the rest of the year?
Possibly. That's possible.
Not necessarily.
I'll just say thank you for bringing it up and trying your best, because I know it must seem that we're always going, no, we don't want that, we don't want that. And it's nice that you bring it up, and it's a positive thing if people want to have it. I think most people don't want to have it, but I don't want you to take it as a real slap down. You don't want that at all. But I just want to make the point that I think I saw a response to Hardy from yourself. I think you made a point about the football area and how much noise that makes. And I'm on the 13th floor. You just hear it kind of and it wasn't we looked at a long time ago when we first went in, and unfortunately it's that kind of thing that's putting people off.
No, I understand.
When something like that happens, when you want to open your windows and it's a nice sunny day,